Well, it's very realistic. I mean, 14 years ago, it was a plan, not a proposal. It had a budget, it had a number of alignments. It was in the MTA's capital plan, and there was a lot of community opposition to it. I joked about an editorial at that time that had called the opposition to it NAMBYism, not above my backyard, because it requires building elevated tracks. But it's extremely important. I mean, LaGuardia is really the only close business airport in the country that doesn't connect directly to mass transit. Reagan National, O'Hare Midway, for example, have direct train lines to their city center, and it's such a critical airport to our city center that a plan that was in the works that was so far along really ought to be revived, particularly around the conversation and the redevelopment of the central terminal building at LaGuardia. It presents an opportunity to really remake the airport both on airport and in its connections to the city.
And this seems like an extraordinary moment of possibility for the city's airports. Governor Cuomo has been talking about, reinvesting, revitalizing our airports. Obviously, the Global Gateway Alliance's work. I mean, do you think that we're going to see some significant movement forward here? And what do you think are the first steps that we'll see come to fruition?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing movement forward, and as you say, there's a lot more political focus on this. Our organization, which was started by Joe Sid, a developer of Thor Equities, it shows how much the business community and the labor community want to be together on making this a critical issue. And you've already seen steps, right? The central terminal building at LaGuardia, which have been talked about for 15, 20 years, is actually moving forward. The notion of building a direct one-seat ride from Lower Manhattan to Newark Airport AirTrain is in the Port Authority's capital plan. So I think you're starting to see important projects go forward, and they're going to take a long time. In the meantime, what we want to see happen is more of a focus on the passenger experience and on amenities, because our airports are too far behind some of the airports around the country and around the world who really use their airports as economic development and brand centers. For example, we did a study that showed that in South Korea they have an ice skating rink, and in Shanghai, which is the Singapore airport, has a 40-foot slide that the public can use. So sort of innovative use of public space that way we think is important in the meantime while these big projects are getting built.
Is it any impediment to the revitalization of the airports, this effort to raise wages for workers at the airports?
No, we don't think it's an impediment. I mean, we think it's important for the airports to have a skilled, quality, and fairly paid workforce. And we've encouraged the port and the airlines to continue to have conversations about how to do that. More important for us, however, is the physical infrastructure and the capacity to serve the amount of passengers that want to use our airports. It was 111 million last year. Projections are up to 130 million in the next 10 or 20 years. And right now we just don't have the capacity to serve that, either on the ground or in the air. We're still using the old radar technology from the 1960s, while other countries around the world, even much smaller ones like Ethiopia, are using satellite-based technology. We like to say you have better GPS in your pocket on your mobile device than you do in your plane, and that has to change.
That's very troublesome. You used to work at the Port Authority. Obviously, you understand the dynamics there very well. Our columnist, Nicole Jelinas, wrote about, in light of Bridgegate, it's kind of exposed that really reminding people that this is a two-state agency, and Newark Airport is really at such a more advanced stage than JFK and LaGuardia. Well, first of all, do you take issue with that? And second of all, how can we make sure that we're not undermining this kind of two-state relationship and trying to invest more in New York's airports? I mean, is there any kind of competition between the two states on that front?
Look, there's always competition between the two states at the Port Authority. I think the agency, over its lifetime, has done a very good job of balancing out that competition. I'd take a little bit of issue with the premise that Newark Airport is somehow much more developed than the New York airports. The port just made a commitment to redeveloping Terminal A at Newark, which is a very, very outdated airport, pre 9/11. And Newark is the most delayed airport in the country. I mean, the single most delayed airport in the country. Our airports, because they're such crowded airspace, cause a half to three-quarters of all delays around the country every day. So there's a lot of work to be done at Newark as well. But But you're right in the premise that the port's mission is to represent the 25-mile radius region, and to think of it as a region, to not think of the Hudson as an arbitrary dividing line. And so we certainly think that, you know, what's good for the New York airports ought to be good for Newark Airport as well, and that it needs to be treated as an integrated system to really make the kind of improvements that we're looking for.